Thanks very much for staying with us here on the Key Points. So it's a busy weekend ahead for what? Some 8,000 delegates for the New Patriotic Party, who per their party's constitution are required to hold this annual Delegates Conference to deliberate on issues relating to the development and advancement of their party. Now, they'll be considering some 38 proposals tabled by various interest groups from the constituency, regional levels, and some are interesting and have begun to even spark debate. We'll take a deep dive into that shortly. But let me introduce our guest in studio, Charles Bisio, who is the NPP Western Regional Secretary. He joins us in studio. Thank you very much, sir, for making some time for us.
Thank you.
We'll also have Dr. Ali Nyaba, who is a political scientist at KNUST, join us as well. And then we will speak with the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, John Buedu. But first, let's go over to our team in Kumasi, Evans Inkum and Roland Walker, who have started this coverage for us.
Well, so it is a busy atmosphere here at the Heroes Park, where momentum is gradually building up ahead of tomorrow's National Delegates Conference of the ruling New Patriotic Party. Everything is set, the stage is ready, where dignitaries will mount and address over 6,000 delegates and other party executives who will be coming to the Heroes Park to account, scrutinize, and also look at a possible affirmation of the over 30 proposals that are before the NPP National Executive Council as far as this particular conference is concerned. Very soon, I will be engaging the chief scribe of the ruling New Patriotic Party, John Buedu, to tell us how preparation is going and also the other proposals that are before the NPP. Of course, we also be looking at that mantra, that famous mantra, breaking the eight. How prepared is the ruling party ahead of the 2024 general elections? And whatever that they are going to do, that preparation will begin from here. And that is tomorrow when the party meets to discuss the future of the ruling New Patriotic Party. So, John, I thank you very much for your time. How prepared are you ahead of tomorrow's event?
You can clearly see for yourself that for the past 3 days, our team has been on the ground. They've been working day and night to make sure that every stone is turned to make sure that this program becomes a success. You will recall that we are the only party that have successfully organized constituency delegate conferences throughout the country in all the 275 constituencies. What it means is that we've been able to meet close to 200,000 of our officers at the grassroots. This is unprecedented because at every constituency annual delegates conference, you have all the polling station executives, 5 polling station executives, electoral area coordinators, and constituency executives. Immediately after that, per the constitution, we also went ahead and organized our regional conferences, and we did so for all the 16 regions. And a month after that is today, tomorrow, we are going to have our national conferences. The essence of these conferences is to take stock. This is a year after the massive victory in 2020, and it gives us the opportunity to account for our stewardship. It gives us the opportunity to analyze and reflect on what has been done. It gives us the opportunity to also look at what government is doing, the mandate that has been given to government, how well government is delivering its manifesto promises. You recall that before we took over in 2017, the economy was down, GDP was 3.4%, the debt level was very high, rising from 26 percent to GDP in 2009 to almost about 72% GDP. The quantum of the debt rose from 9 billion to close to 122 billion Ghana. It got to a point that the fiscal space was narrowed to the extent that if you put together internally generated income for the year, you pay salaries, you pay statutory payment and interest and its principal. You have virtually nothing. Close to 99% was going into that. 2007, 2018, 2000 consistently. You've made some level of milestone as far as this, but let's stick to. I want us to stick to.
You
must appreciate that if it is easy, then this will have done so. Well, to the extent that by 2016 we were not hit by COVID. But we grew by just 3.4%.
Yesterday you met the media and a number of concerns were raised about developing the Ashanti region, which is the stronghold of the NPP. Don't forget that in the 2016 elections, you secured some 76% votes in the region. But in 2020, you dropped. And that was the very first time, because if you compare what you had to 2004, when you were entering your second term, you were hovering around 76%. But this time around, you dropped. Would you say that you have satisfied, looking at the figures, you have satisfied the people of the Ashanti region? Don't forget that you lost one more seat.
We are a party that is nationally oriented. We are a party that developed the entire country. We don't only develop one area because it's our stronghold. You understand? This is the party that has a holistic development for the entire nation. You will have been leading a charge to say that we are only concentrating in Ashanti region because it's our stronghold. No, we as a party, and because of their numbers, because of the promises that you gave during the campaign before 2016, of course, 2020, when they were expecting that it happens, but they think that considerably you could not fulfill those promises. Wait, if you move around, don't even go far from Greater Kumasi, you see the kind of development that is going on. Road construction all over the place. But I don't want to concentrate our efforts to create an impression that we are in government to satisfy just our people. Even if you take the NDC, they got their highest vote from the Ashanti region. You understand? And so we are doing holistic development, and I can assure you, all these interchanges that you've seen that we've not been able to complete are interchanges that was begun by the new Patriotic Party government. We've never had any such development in Ashanti region before. We are committed to ensure that every promise that we gave, particularly in Ashanti region and most of the areas that needs development, will be delivered.
Will you be able to break the 8, juxtaposing your performance within the last couple of years to what the level of promises that you gave to the people of the Ashanti region, your political stronghold?
What level of performance are you talking about? This is a party that won election from just under 122 members of parliament. We managed to win with 1.5 million different at the presidency, and also won 169 votes. Out of these 169 parliamentarians, about 55 of them that we snatched from the NDC, we lost 23 of them presidential. It means that we benefited from skirt and blouse. We've done all these analysis. If you check the records and the results in 2020, you realize that we also lost from skirt and blouse from our people. For instance, if you take Central Region, the president won 19 seats, but for the parliamentary won 10. It means that there are a lot of things that need to be done, but in terms of performance, no party in this country has won in its second term with a margin of 500,000 ever in this country.
Now let's talk about the proposals. We understand about 38 proposals are before you. We are hearing an expansion of the Nsara, expanding the Nsara at the polling station level and annexing it into the electoral college system. That is a proposal that is before the National Executive, of course, the delegate to consider. But there has been some level of agitation because they also believe that if this one is made to go through, then we are going to have a situation where one particular aspirant, of course, will probably benefit from this. Has this kind of concern come to you?
One thing you must realize, I don't know where you got the 38 proposals before us. The proposal that came before us was close to 120. But you realize that there are some that are double. The proposal may be the same from individuals. So we put all together and put it in one whole. Out of the 120 proposals that came before us, we've been able to tease out about 91 motions. So I don't know where you got your 38 proposals before. We have close to 91 motions. As to the individual proposals and the concerns, that one it's not for me to discuss. Everybody can have his reason to disagree or agree with one proposal or the other. And it is up to the delegates to determine what exactly the way forward is. I'm not in the position to profile even a position as to whether the proposal is correct or not. Yeah.
What is informing the party's decision, which is also subjected to affirmation by the over 6,000 delegates, to ensure that any aspirant relinquishes his or her position before the National Congress? I don't know whether you want me to repeat the question again.
I don't really understand that.
Well, I am asking, what informed the party's decision, or let me put it in the right context, proposal, which is, of course, will be affirmed or otherwise by the over 6,000 delegates, asking aspirants to relinquish their position before National Delegates Congress?
There's no proposal like that. I don't know where you are getting that proposal from. There's no proposal like that. The only thing that came up, which National Steering Committee and the National Executive Committee affirmed, was the fact that this conference is a party government conference. It was, as a result, all our minds, all our thinking, all our efforts should be geared towards party and government. As a result, we ban all internal elections and campaign and all that. That is to the extent of a proposal that comes close to what you are saying. But there's no proposal that says that anybody should relinquish his position or the other. Yeah.
Before you take leave of us, what should we be expecting tomorrow? Run us through tomorrow's event.
Tonight, all delegates from the 275 constituencies and the 16 regions are coming. They have all been booked accommodation. They will be lodging. We are starting as early as 8 a.m. with a sermon, a church service, and it will be held here with a renowned pastor preaching to kickstart the program. After that, the regional chairman will welcome all delegates to Ashanti Region and also let us know that they are hospitable. They are going to make sure this becomes a success. Then the national chairman opens the conference as usual, give us the background and where we are and the reason why we are here. Then you have the majority caucus also letting us know what is happening in Parliament, considering how close the numbers are and what needs to be done by party people. Then we'll have fraternal messages from other political parties and other fraternities addressing us as usual, as we do. Then we'll go into Congress proper. The National Treasurer gives his report for consideration. The General Secretary gives his report. Then we'll end the morning but with a statement from the Vice President. So we break for lunch after the Vice President's statement. We come back and look at the proposal for amendment and the discussion that goes with it. Then we end the conference with a statement from the President. This is what the Ghanaian people should be looking for. It is a conference that is going to take us through where we are coming from, where we are, and the need for us to continue to help this party and this government, because it is the only party and the only government that is capable and resolved and committed to develop Ghana.
You are holding a national executive position. You are an incumbent currently as the chief scribe of the ruling party. You are looking forward to retaining your seat as far as this particular or next year's Congress is concerned. Are we going to see a level playing field where all aspirants will enjoy equal opportunity ahead of National Congress?
This is National Conference, National Annual Delegates Conference.
I am making reference to the National Congress. Are we going to enjoy? Absolutely. Are we going to see all aspirants enjoy equal opportunity? Because you are an incumbent, you are also contesting to retain your seat.
I think that my record is there for all to see. I'm a person that does not put my personal issues before government or party issue. Our party said that even if you are incumbent, you are not going to have total control in how the elections are organized. We almost every time in such situations bring out rules and regulations, and we form election committee that will be manned by individuals who are not contesting, to be manned by men and women of integrity, to run the campaign. So there's nothing like having incumbency advantages or ensuring level playing field. But of course, as the incumbent general secretary, there are a lot of things that I will do on behalf of the party, because the mandate given to me in Koforidua in 2018 will end in 2020. So this conference, for instance, by that mandate, I will address conference. If you consider it as incumbency advantage, too bad. God, that is what it is. You understand?
Now, you issued a very clear directive that everybody should have his or her billboard pulled down before conference. In fact, for the Ashanti Region Minister, he even gave all aspirants up to Tuesday night. But on Thursday, only yesterday, we saw billboards of some aspirants still standing at vantage position. Of course, we can talk about the billboard of the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Are you going to, as a party, are you going to sanction people who flouted this directive?
I think that by and large, if you make a rule, you don't dwell on just exceptions. You understand? You can see from all over the place that there are no posters and banners and flags of individuals. It's all about new patriotic party. It's all about government. You understand? The directive that we issued out has been observed. I have seen individual aspirants or potential aspirants pulling down their own billboards, and I think that it's been very successful. On the part of, for instance, the vice president, he's a sitting vice president. If you look around from the hotel that I was staying, I can still see his poster with the president, for more to do more. I don't think that the directive says that a ticket that was used in 2020, because of this directive, we should pull it down. So if you see such billboards, that is an old billboard that was used in 2020, there's no point in going to pull it down.
Grateful.
You can see there was one where you saw the vice president, I think the energy minister and the president. It's been pulled down. You understand him?
Grateful for your time, John. So we have been speaking with the chief scribe of the ruling New Patriotic Party, John Boadu. As I said, all is set for tomorrow's event. The stage is set, chairs have been arranged, the atmosphere is charged, momentum is building up. William Evans Inkom, TV3 News, back to you, studios.
Very, very interesting, and I guess tomorrow is going to be more exciting. So let me just welcome to our studios Mr. Charles Bissiou again, and then we have Dr. Anaba online. So first I'll start with you, Mr. Bissiou. So is this a highly, would you describe this as a highly anticipated event, considering that it's going to look at proposals for amendments or, changes?
Okay, thank you, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, it is. We, as a political party, gave birth to this government, and it's our duty that the government performs well. And so, if the government has to perform well, then we have to have our own introspection and put things right, because charity begins at home. By putting things right, our discipline, the amendments that are coming in, because things have evolved, and laws are actually, or regulations have to be in tandem with the current affairs. So that is what we're going to do. Once we come out, we're going to come out as a strong party. We can go there, do all these things, and then not have unity and discipline, and the government will not perform better, because as we speak, there are a lot of things happening in the country. People are suffering and all that, which the government has taken, cognizance of that. So this conference is pivotal for us actually breaking the 8 or winning the next elections as a party that gave birth to the government.
All right. I know that some of the proposals, and we can put them up, talk about some interesting options. I haven't seen all the 38, but the interesting ones refer to, for instance, expanding the electoral college, including MPs, giving them voting rights. I understand there is also a proposal, MCEs are also requesting voting rights. Nsara Club, including them at polling stations, all the polling stations. Then there's also whether a flag bearer should be elected 2 years before elections, whether the party is in government or in opposition.
Exactly.
I think that seems to be quite a contentious one. You are Western Regional NPP Secretary. Did your region present any particular proposals?
No, not any major, out of the ones that you've listed. But for me, the pivotal ones are the expansion of the
electoral college.
College.
Is that important at this time?
We have to go there and discuss it, but then with any point that made, the arguments for and against. For example, if we want to expand it, yes, we are going to expand it. Then by the time we finish, if we have about 500,000 in party officers, then it means that's 500,000 votes for us. However, that might be efficient, but would it be effective? That's the question for me. It has to be effective, because the 5 polling station executives that we have now, have we been able to control them? Have they been able to control or manage the if you look at the EC, between I think up to 800 people or 1,000 votes within a certain polling station, and it's the job of those 5 to actually manage and then see what is bring reports up and down. Have we managed it effectively? So I think that is what we need to look at first before expanding. With the Nsara one, already Nsara falls under the organizational wing of the party, and the party's constitution has the chairmanship, the secretariat, and the organization. So if Nsara falls underneath it, then I don't see why we should expand it, because it's not everywhere that we have zongos. But saying that Nsara is not for Muslims only. It is actually for settlement.
It's for settler communities that meet a certain characteristics and criteria.
Exactly, but if you look at it, if you go to certain constituencies where there are, and people have perceived it to be the Zongos and all that, but if you go to certain areas where there are no Zongos and all that,
but there is a settlement community there.
Yeah, but the settlement community also falls under the party structure, because if you look at the youth organizer, there might be a settler in there. If you look at the women organizer, there will be a settler in there and all that. Again, the holding primaries for the presidential 24 months before that. If it's 24 months, 1.5 years, there are arguments for and against. I spoke to somebody yesterday, and the person was saying that it would be a great idea to actually come out with the presidential candidates 2 years ahead of it. And I said, why? And the person was saying that if we do that, because now the NDC are saying that everything that the government is bad. The president now wants a succession plan. He wants NPP to stay in power. And NPP, when we develop Ghana better, that's what the person was telling me. And so if the person who is going to succeed the president is there, then he can actually be working with the president and see the project so that there's a succession plan, because governance is continuous. And that person who the party appoints or elects will be actually joining or actually debating with President Mahama, who who wants to come.
Instead of the president who may be exiting, being the one
Exactly.
doing the debate with
So the president can
an
focus
incoming
on
candidate.
Yes.
So that the president would focus on what governing, and then whoever is elected will focus on the campaign.
Exactly, because President Mahama keeps talking about the things that they want to do, but the president is not going to be there, so he's not talking about the things that he's going to do. So this person coming in.
So that's the argument that this person put forward to
And
you.
again, they're saying that when in 2008, when we had 17 aspirants, even though our constitution has been actually updated to the extent that we have the super delegates thing, but they're saying that some ministers are interested in contesting the flag bearership. So their focus will not be in their ministry. They'll be working for a presidential. So Ghanaians will not benefit from that. So we go for an early Congress. You resign, you go in for it, and then if you win or lose, you're out of it, so that we bring in new ministers so that there's energies. Then the Ghanaian benefits from it. This is an argument. Another person is saying 1 year. 1 year is enough, because if it's 2 years, then the flag bearer might be, undermining the president, which I don't see that happening. So there are arguments for and against. So all these things, we're going there, but at the end of it, the takeaway is that we have to come out with a disciplined party. We must be resolute, because we have a good message. But the messenger is important. And the messengers should be the party members who, when we went into the last election, for example, if you had 5 million votes, I want to sell my party to the extent that I'm going to get 1 million votes, and I want to go within the camp of the NDC and bring more people. And how do we win them? It is us, the party officers, who have to actually come out with and churn out the good things of the party.
Okay, I'll come to you on the message, because I had an interview with Nia Ikwe-Otu, former Attorney General, and one of the things he talked about was in 2020, his view was that the government had done very well on many levels, but somehow the messaging was a challenge which impacted. So I'll come back to you on that. Let me bring in Dr. Nyaba. Thank you very much for joining us, Doc. So for you, which will be the most contentious of these proposals that the NPP has to deal with? Whether they should elect a presidential candidate a year or 2 years before they go into an election, expanding the electoral college, giving members of parliament voting rights, for instance, national executives or ministers interested in whatever position, flag bearership, should resign. What for you will be the most difficult for the NPP to come to an agreement on, maybe?
Yeah, thank you so much, and a very warm regards to our cherished viewers. I think the one on the Nsara is not only contentious to me, but quite ambiguous. I know it is one of the structures, the internal structures within the party, or one of the wings within the party that is expected to, bring along people who belong to a certain category. Yes, and per what the party executive just mentioned, he was talking about settler communities. You know, there are different categories of settler communities everywhere that you go. But if you refer to Zongos, you know, there is a kind of religious connotation to Zongos. If you go to where it's an Islamic community already, who do you refer to as settler communities? So will you say if there is a Fanti or Ashanti community or Ebe community within a Muslim area, you will call that a settler community? So the Nsara Group, from the very beginning, I felt it referred to what we have generally termed as Zongo. And you know, the moment you mentioned Zongo, they are predominantly Muslims. And rightly so, if you ask me, the NPP claim not to have fared so well among such communities. And they try to make a conscious effort to get coordinators who will consciously try to bring in or pull some votes from the so-called Zongos. But it is going to be contentious, particularly contentious around this time, because it is quite eminent that the sitting vice president want to run for the presidential candidature. And people, as a matter of fact, think that it is strengthening the Nsara Group is consciously done to, give him the advantage because he belongs to that section of the wing. It is not. It is naturally. There's actually nothing wrong with internal structures within a party. We have the youth wing, we have the women's wing, we have other structures within the party that are supposed to consciously get some categories of people. But you see, this one has a certain connotation that has a direct link to a competitor, and if you don't take time, some other members of the party who do not belong to that side will begin to feel that why are we all of a sudden thinking about strengthening it?
Okay.
Because we don't actually find anything wrong with how it has functioned over the period since its inception. But why are we suddenly trying to strengthen it? What is the rationale so that what will not happen that has happened before?
Okay, so that's the argument on the Nsara proposal. What are your thoughts on the election of a flag bearer, whether it's 2 years or 1 year, whether the NPP is in government or in opposition? Is that the right thing to do, or they should maintain what exists? I think the flag bearer is elected, just a year before the election.
Yes, like the party executive in the studios mentioned, there are always pros and cons to every decision that you want to take. And I think that is partly the reason why the party has decided to discuss this in total at the conference, so that they will look at all the sides and then probably settle on the most advantageous way of getting the thing done. If you elect the presidential candidate early, and I think the rationale for those who might have made that proposal is that it allows for the wounds to heal. It gives enough time for the wounds to heal. That's quite natural. You can't do it any other way. Time naturally heals, and you will not be able to do it any other way aside from that. So from a very personal point of view, and from just that angle, I'm not saying there are no disadvantages on the other side, but from a very personal point of view, I think it's a good proposal. It is something that will allow people to get over some of the wranglings that might have come as a result of campaigning to be elected. And then by the time you enter the last year before the elections, all of you would have rejoined together as a common front so that you can fight the battle in a more united form.
Okay. Let me come to Mr. Bisu. So in terms of these proposals, which one do you think is truly fundamental to the NPP's campaign towards breaking the 8?
No, the inclusiveness of, DCs, voting and all that, I would go for that because, first of all, I would do and carry out an introspection as to 2020, the elections, why we lost so many seats. When you do that, then you actually be finding the problems before, because if we haven't actually done that, and I know there's a report the Osafo committee carried out, brought to the National Council, and then we pick what our mistakes from there, and then within the party structure, we put in that these motions are coming from people, but when we go there tomorrow, I believe that whatever we do should be in tandem of that report, because the report cannot just be left idle. We carry out investigations and all that, and then the recommendations, we need to actually carry them out. So
but is it about inclusivity that affects how the party will perform? Because it's two things. And one of the things I've noticed was that for 2020, individuals were picked, or, okay, maybe picked is not a fair word. You know, people were kind of railroaded and supported an individual.
Yes.
Whilst there was an incumbent in
Exactly.
some instances. And this incumbent ended up
Losing
out,
seats,
you
yes.
know. So this person pushed through may have been the popular person
Yeah.
at the party level, but not at the national constituency level.
Exactly.
Probably the other individual was more popular at that level and could have won, as
Yeah.
opposed to this other individual who was put forward but they lost, or
Okay.
they didn't do well enough.
You see, there are two things. If you're only going for a popular person, then you'll be doing a disservice to the country. You understand? Because if I have to go in for my political party and say he's the most popular person, and then I know some political parties do that, and then so we send that person to parliament, then we're sending mediocre to parliament. And what's the essence of having a political party? Is for us to have a quality political party and also have quality what?
Oh,
in
but
par-
some of these individuals I refer to were also of quality.
Yeah,
I
that-
just don't want to mention names, but
Yeah, that's
some
what-
were also of quality. So it's almost as if a change was made, but it didn't benefit the party
Exactly.
in the long
So that's
run.
exactly the point I'm trying to make. That if we're saying that the person is the most popular person, and yet when the person goes to parliament will not perform, and that is just the numbers that we want, then we're actually, doing a disservice to the country. It's like doing this simultaneous equation. If you get the equation right, your graphs will be wrong. You understand? So we, as a political party, we need to educate our delegates as to what is required in parliament. And then once we've trained them, and then it's like the jury system, where you guide them as to what is done in parliament and all that. But then we haven't gotten there yet. Now,
So
you're
the
talk-
inclusivity will help how? If you have MPs or MCs or...
No, the MCs, the current MCs should have a voting right.
They should have
That
a
I
vote.
agree. Because
Okay.
you are doing things for the president within the community, and yet you do not have a vote. That I disagree. But then there's another argument which says that the former MPs, okay, should be allowed to be members of the constitution. That one I disagree.
You
'Cause
disagree.
and then-
Why?
Because a former MP can be an ex-officio member without a voting right. You see, basically.
But they continue to nurture constituencies. They continue to support. They
So-
continue to contribute.
An MP might have lost, and there will be acrimony, and even when the person is not a member of the constituency, they are trying to actually throw that into what is happening, and that affects governance and all that. Because in our system, all people do is that even when you're doing the right thing, they look for you to fail, for them to, and that's, I think, for me, it's just too bad. I want people to do well, and then I will also compete, and then in the end, who is the customer or the Ghanaian populace get the best out of both of us. So if the former MP, for example, they've gone for primaries and he's been beaten, he might be better. He will be in there, he has a vote and all that. And I'll give you an example. In 2010, I went for parliamentary primaries in Ahanta West, and Honorable Jomfia won by just one vote, his vote. Assuming you have an ex-MP who is there, who he can actually determine, because he might not like the current MP. So he can be in there as an ex-official member, but not having voting rights.
Okay.
But for the MDCs, you're making decisions for the president. You're a member of the party and all that. Unless, of course, we actually go for the election of MMDC, then
That changes the dynamics
Exactly.
a bit. Okay. I'll take a final point from you, Dr. Nyaba. In terms of the MPP and whatever the outcome is, what for you should be the fundamental target for them? They're going in to decide on these 38 proposals. What should be the final outcome for the party?
Yes, it's a normal practice that every organization, after a period of time, specifically in most instances, after every 1 year, they meet to deliberate on what they have done, achieved so far, the things they can do better. So at this point in time, they are grappled with the need to break a certain age. And their performance in the 2020 elections was not particularly fabulous. So coming together to deliberate on proposals across the country, and I don't want to be preemptuous. The National Secretary, the General Secretary of the party said that they don't have up to 38 that they have synthesized. They have just about 19, but they had a pool of over 90 proposals that came from all across the country, which they have synthesized into a certain number. So we can wait for a while and get to know the actuals of what they are trying to add up to beef up their constitution, to put them in a better position to compete and possibly break the eight in the next elections in 2024. But I think it's a good thing, it's a normal thing, and they have become conscious of the fact that they need to break a certain jinx that is unprecedented in this country, that no party have been able to get a third term. And then they are coming from a point where they did not perform as they expected in the last elections in 2020. They lost a number of parliamentary seats, and then the presidents did not win as overwhelmingly like they might have expected. So there is a lot of zeal among them, and there is a lot of enthusiasm, and there is a lot of consciousness among them that something really has to be done, something new has to be done, new energies have to be built, restructures have to be looked at, and then the strategies must be on point so that they can compete favorably and possibly make history in 2024.
Thank you very much, sir. And that's Dr. Nyaba. He's a political scientist with KNUST, Secretary in the Western Region, Mr. Charles Bisu. So in terms of the presidential candidates, now tell us what the party is seeking to achieve at the end of the day. I mean, whether it is past this proposal about when the candidate is elected or okay, not. What's the party seeking to achieve? Because it's interesting that someone put forward this proposal.
Okay, the whole thing is that the party, every 4 years, the constitution mandates us to hold a conference like this. Within that, we bring in these proposals, and then we adopt it and then move forward. So it's not just about presidential aspirants. However, if we're talking about presidential aspirants, what we want to get out of it, first of all, it is the policies of the party, the manifesto and all that, because now we're going to choose a presidential aspirant, maybe the candidate in the next year or so. What is he going to sell? It's going to be based on what we've done in the last 8 years. So first of all, we need to look at our policies. So it's not just about the person that we're bringing, because that cannot win us anything. Because if we're going to choose a person and then actually resting our future in that person, then it means that we haven't done anything in the last 8 years. So basically, to summarize that, we need to look at the first 4 years, another 4 years, and then see the person who can take us there. And also, it's what Ghanaians want. Are Ghanaians satisfied with us as a political party? That's why I'm saying that after tomorrow's conference, we need to come out with that discipline. Charity begins at home. We've done our introspection. The party is solid. Once the party is solid, it's a domino effect that the government is going to perform well.
All right. So let me ask, if, for instance, these voting rights are approved, yes, hypothetically speaking, how does that impact the leadership contest, whether it's at the flag bearer level, whether it's at the party leadership level? Will there be any significant change?
No, it's not so much about the presidential a change in the choice of candidate. It's actually the effectiveness of the party there.
The effectiveness of the party.
So the addition of these people is for us to have an effective party machinery within the polling station, constituency, region, and all that. It's not for us to go and actually decide that we're adding more people to choose. Then it means that it's going to skew towards somebody's advantage. That's not what we're looking for, an effective party, and that's why we're congregating there. Okay.
You say you're looking for an effective party. It's not meant to skew anything. I've heard people say that these party contests are quite expensive, and keeping the numbers small allow people to have strong influence. Will that really change if the electoral college is expanded?
Okay, so there are two ways. First of all, if you have a small number, then the ability to pay is what wins at the end of the day. If it's a larger community or a larger group, then it's difficult for you to actually bribe each person or pay money to each person for them to vote. So there's an advantage for having a smaller group, and then there's an advantage for having a bigger group. I would go for the effectiveness of it. If I'm saying that we have 5 polling station members there, and we have to add up, so that when you come to the constituency level where you have the treasurer, which we do not have at the polling station, where we have for the financial secretary, which we do not have the polling station, we need to make a point in saying that the reason why we are bringing them to the polling station level is because of A, B, C, D. But at the polling station level, I don't think we need a treasurer, because we are not collecting money there, or we are not actually dealing with money. It's the money actually cascades from the top to the bottom. What we are expecting from those at the polling station, it's more like for example, let me use like a company like Nestle. Nestle has its headquarters in Tema, right? And it does the production of milk and all that. It goes to the regional offices, and then we have the wholesalers who also do this in the district. But then the retailers are the most important thing. That is why we NPP we do retail campaigning. The retailer is able to tell you that within my community, hitherto I used to actually have about 10 cartons, sell 10 cartons of milk within a certain month. And when it's during Ramadan, I sell more. They are able also to tell you that there's 900 people within my community, but then in the last 4 years or 2 years, the population has increased. So I am actually, with that, the head office or the headquarters can make decisions based on that, because the population has increased. And within that, the retail campaigning or the retailer can tell you that out of those people who came there, 5 people do not take milk. Others are members of the Pentecost Church. Others are Muslims and all that. Because politics is scientific. When you gather all these, you can then actually strategize and make an informed decision for those at the grassroots. So that's basically this. So what we have, we need to go and find out, yes, we are efficient. Are we effective? How, the takeaway is that when we leave, whatever we're going to add to it must make us an effective political party. Because we are all going around and saying that, yes, things are bad, and our own people are even not happy. Majority of them. We need to educate them as to why. First of all, why do you join a political party? For me, I joined the political party NPP because I want the party to do also that Ghana will get better. Some also think that they have to have a relationship with you and then you give them money. You need to educate the person and say that yes, the political party is something that we all join. But me giving you money because you do not have it, it's a relationship between you and I. It is not my duty to give you money every day. That education must go down. And then we also have politicians who actually prey on the vulnerable. They use them and then dump them. And that's something that is happening to us. If you're a politician and you have young people following you, that person has followed you for 2 years. Have you ever asked the person his level of education, what the person wants to do and all that? Maybe that person might not even have maths and English in the SSS exam. Can you actually pay for the person to better the results so that when the person says that, come after you've actually done whatever it is, and the person wants to go into the police and all that, then you actually send new quality in there. Because it gets to a point where somebody comes out and said, I have followed this politician for 3 years and I wanted to get into the police service and I do not have the requisite qualification, and now he's asking me for CV. Whilst you're with him, can you help that person prepare a CV so that you put the person in there? Because if I am a politician and I put somebody in there who is not even qualified, then it means that the armed robber will come to my house because I have contributed to it. Crime would increase because I have contributed to it. So it's a way of actually educating our lot. And we as leaders also should ensure that we have a party which is resolute, disciplined, and there are so many. I mean, it's not just within the NPP. There are cliques within us where we see that this person is not competent, but the person is not competent because he's my friend. He must occupy that position. I think that thing should be a thing of the past, because I've seen a lot of more people who within our party who are even not competent to do certain things. It doesn't mean that if you're not competent here, you cannot be competent elsewhere. Let's actually do the job specification well and apply it, because if you go to the constituency level and the regional level, the party says that we vote for 10 officers. After voting, we identify and you appoint 7 others. Within the constitution, they said diversity, culture, and all that. You look at that. By a certain chairman or group of people, because they actually went into the election as a block, would come and put somebody there. within the executive because the person is a friend, the person might not even be competent. So I like the point where Kwabena Duffuor, the communication director, was saying that if we're choosing a communication director within a region, we need to even discuss with the national hierarchy, because the communication director, what is his job? We've had communication directors who are not even fit for that position. For me, going forward, if we're having communication officers and communication directors, it needs to be in tandem with government, because you have various ministries. And then we send deputy communication directors to radio stations and then TV stations to communicate for us. But then they are not even very well versed in the area that they're talking about. So if we're having deputy communication director, should we have some for interior, somebody who has actually knows something about interior, somebody who knows something about agric. So when we are going out to communicate and you give us the topics, we send specific people there. It's not just anybody going to communicate anything
so
to help the information ministry to
so
propagate
that
the work of
for you
government.
is about how the party can become more efficient
Yes,
and effective.
and
I'll come back
effective.
to the bit on communication. Let's see if we can connect with Dr. Arthur Kennedy, who has written an article about some of these reforms where he shares some views. For instance, he is against the election of a flag bearer 2 years before elections, whether the NPP as a party is in government or in opposition. And you can find that article on 3news.com as well. Now, in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, now let me refer you to what I raised earlier about the messaging.
Yeah.
So obviously you're going to this meeting to also take stock of how the party performed and what you can do to make it better. One of the things that generally I've heard some party members say was, we did a lot of things, but we didn't communicate it effectively. And you started off by speaking about that. But I'm just wondering, is it really the case, I mean, from you all as executives, that this is about communication, or you missed the plot as to what people were expecting?
Okay, no, it's not a matter of missing the plot. With communication, it never be 100%. You have to keep going and keep going. But the thing is that, like I concluded earlier, I said, if I'm coming into this TV station at TV3 now, and you give me the topic areas, if I'm not well versed, then I shouldn't be speaking to it, because I'm going to come in here and communicate and then communicate badly, then I leave gaps for the government or the Minister for Information to come back and then pick up the pieces. Time wasted and all that, and then it puts my party and government in bad light.
So you think that it's a combination of those factors that may have affected?
It's a combination, and then too, you see the opposition, the NDC. What if we've actually prepared the psychology of the Ghanaian voter that every 8 years we have to change the government, okay? But the constitution doesn't say.
Is it the politicians who've decided on that, or maybe Ghanaians, that's their decision?
Especially the NDC.
Maybe they tend to get, maybe Ghanaians tend to get tired after 8 years. They want something different.
It started in 2008. You know, when we discovered oil in commercial quantities, NDC said no, they have to go. So it was cooking oil, and then
Are you sure that you've done the introspection? Because by 2008, it seems maybe many Ghanaians were unhappy in spite of certain achievements. And so this was not necessarily about the NDC.
If you allow me to learn, that is subjective. And I'm just saying that in 2008, the opposition came in, we found oil, commercial quantity. They said it wasn't true, but now we are doing it. So they haven't been consistent with Ghanaians. They came in, they said 110 premium, which wasn't feasible. Again, it never happened.
But they came back and said that, well, this is not something we're going to be able to achieve.
So
what's wrong with that?
So they were not consistent. But then,
no, they wanted to do something. I'm just saying, politicians may have good intentions, but maybe it doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with coming back to say that. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So you need to be consistent with people, and through that you get goodwill. You understand? So in 2008, they prepared the psychology that 8 years is over, and then there were lies. I'm not saying NPP people haven't lied to people. That is the reason why we're here, that we need to communicate effectively. all I'm saying is that they've worked on the psychology of the Ghanaian that 8 years we have to change, but the constitution doesn't allow that. If it's only 8 years, then President Mahama shouldn't be contesting, because if he wins, yeah, then he can't do the 8 years. So it is the political party which can be there for 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, but then the presidential candidate or the president, the constitution says only 2 terms. So let's get that right. And then moving forward, they everything that you come out with, they said it's not good. COVID, the management, and so everything, because we think that 8 years, we've prepared the psychology of the Ghanaian that 8 years they need to go, and so everything that they do is bad. 8 years, you've got into that. Ghanaians who might have gotten to their wits end and diminishing returns are set in, so we have to actually tell them that everything that the government is doing is not good. But we as NPP, that's why I'm saying that we will come out of this conference, and I'm happy that it is in the first year of a second 4-year term. So we have time. The e-levy and all these things coming up, we are going to communicate with people. And for example, with the e-levy, if we agree, if Parliament agrees and the appropriation bill goes on and the fine details come out, we need to tell Ghanaians that, yes, ABC, we are going to get maybe 10 million. This is what we're going to use for, because in 2024, I need that to go and campaign with and communicate effectively. That's all I'm saying. So we've done a lot of things in this country, but then the psychology of the Ghanaian and the NDC is throwing us into the eyes of the Ghanaian populace.
All right. So let me just take a quick point from Dr. Arthur Kennedy. He is a former communications director of the NPPs based in the U.S. So, Dr. Kennedy, you've been monitoring some of these proposals that are put forward. What are your thoughts as the party goes to this conference? And it's starting today, but the main event is tomorrow.
Well, there are a lot of proposals on the table, and let me make a few brief points. I think about enlarging the electoral college. There are a lot of proposals there, adding more Nsara coordinators, letting former MPs vote, etc., etc. I think we should move to the logical end, which is that all party members in good standing, as defined as they pay their dues up to a certain point, should be allowed to vote. And that is simple. In addition to that, it has the advantage that when you expand the electorate beyond a certain point, it is more democratic, it is more difficult for money to sway people because there are too many people to sway. Then we can put behind us all these things about people having ulterior motives about adding this or that people to the electoral college. So I think all those who are in good standing as party members should be allowed to vote, depending on the level. And Nigeria has just passed the law from their parliament requiring all parties to go to direct elections during their primaries. The most important issue, it will seem, is when you have the presidential primaries. I believe that 2 years is too early, and it has a number of effects. First, it will seem that we are inflicting ourselves the wound of having 2 presidents or 2 centers of power. And sooner or later, that is going to haunt us. Actually, Kenya now has an open feud between the sitting president and his vice, who has been chosen as a successor by the party, because they have differences of opinion. We've seen that before in Nigeria and other places. And the third thing, which is most worrisome, is that it gives the unfortunate impression that the NPP, having fought for and won a second mandate for the Nana Akufo-Addo government, appears uninterested in that mandate. It seems more interested in getting another mandate than in executing the mandate that it has already. I think that is unfortunate. The best way to secure a new mandate is to execute the current mandate well. I think that we should all help the president, encourage him, and get him to succeed, because regardless of how long a candidate has, the most important thing is the record he is going to run on, and that will be the record of this present president.
Now, you worry about having potentially 2 people side by side, but the president will be exiting. It allows the president to govern, and then he doesn't have to be responding to somebody who is the opposition competitor. There's somebody else to do that? It may seem petty, but obviously the president in his second term would want to focus on governing and, of course, exiting in a manner that does not descend into just partisan politicking. How about that?
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable point. I think my advice respectfully is that I think these campaign activities have started too early. First, it is making the president the lame duck. We shouldn't be doing that. I think that the electorate sent us the message that we were not completely happy with what had happened during our first term, and we should be sitting up and executing, not just the president, but all his ministers and DCs and everybody involved in the government at every level. The best way to beat the 8 or maybe even beat the 12 is to make sure that the president's mandate is successfully executed, to protect the public purse in his own words, as he said, make sure that the youth has work to do. In other words, he should fix the country, as people are demanding, because if we fix the country, then the country will want us to go on bringing more changes that the country likes.
Final point, Dr. Kennedy, what about extending voting rights for members of parliament or MCEs? I know you've talked about it should be opened up for everyone, but what about these specific interest groups?
On principle, I just think we need to move to the logical end. Instead of small groups fighting for getting the franchise, former members of parliament, Nsara coordinators, Abosomfor coordinators, Hampton coordinators, and very soon it will become upset. Let's move to the logical end. All those who are party members in good standing should be allowed to vote. We have always led all these democratic changes that deepen our democracy. The NDC is ahead of us. It is time for us to catch up and stop doing gymnastics. That don't make sense.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arthur Kennedy, speaking to us all the way from the U.S. So let me come to you. Any comment you want to make quickly?
Oh, no, basically, I think decisions are made based on exigency. He's made most of the point with the NASA, where we have Abosomfor and all that. That's why it's like opening the floodgates.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Are we efficient? If we're efficient, how effective do we manage that?
I think he mentioned something interesting, that if the president executes the second term mandate very well, it will be easy to break the 8. That's not necessarily...
That is where I depart from. Yeah, he's going to do that. The president is by all means going to execute, because he would want to leave a legacy. Okay. But then, if we go there and then they say, okay, there's 2 years, because in 2008, where I'm looking at it, that within a year, that's when all the 17 aspirants came in and there was a mess and here and all that. People are saying, can we heal those wounds? That is one thing. But then you see, as I sat here now, when he was talking, I actually deduced something that, okay, if there's an 8-year term, so when the president is there in the first term, can we do the primaries within maybe 6 months or a year? Then the president is not disturbed. But in the second term, where the president is exiting, is it somewhere that maybe we have to think about it and then bring out a presidential aspirant, a candidate who will be actually working with the president, so that there's a succession plan. He would know where the president to do the thing, what and everything that is going on in the country. I thought that puts it in a certain stead, because now, as we speak, the president is actually doing a lot for the country. President Mahama is actually throwing a lot more dust into the eyes of people. Would we have a presidential candidate who will be actually debating him, so that there are ways of actually going about it? So I didn't come in with any preparedness, but whilst he was saying that, I said, should we do that in the first term, where 1 year a certain president is there, then primaries? If it's in the second term, then is it 2 years, 1.5 years? It is for the Congress to decide. Yeah. But we need to be abreast with time, because we had 208, we had 17 aspirants, and we couldn't even heal. And there's still problems that Dr. Arthur Kennedy is even part of that problem, the 17 aspirants and all that, and we are still even dealing with it now.
It's still a lingering issue?
That's part of our history, isn't it? it's part of our history where he wrote the book and
yes,
was
but
chastised.
what I mean is those tensions from then, you still, I thought
I'm not saying there's tension now, but that's a reference point for us.
Okay.
So it's a reference point for us to actually search forward.
Such that you make a decision that doesn't have a repetition
Exactly. So
of that.
the decision we made in
fact.
2008 doesn't have to be the decision now, because things should be based on the exigency of time. So I am looking at it from now, the point where NDC, even when they're doing things, they're throwing that into the eyes of people. The president, are they distracting him? Yes, they're trying to distract him, but he's a seasoned politician. So if a way that we have a presidential aspirant or candidate who sits there and then comes in with a vision and say, hey, this government has done up to this, so I'm going to continue from here to there. And there has been consistency, because if you look at our manifesto in 2016, when we went in 2020, we consolidated it and we said leadership of service. With the next parliamentary candidate also do what? Consolidate it and say we are actually following through. Then that's the development of Ghana for
All
me.
right. I'm sorry, but that's all time will allow us, Bud. I hope you can join us again on another edition of Key Points. But just to let you know that the appropriation bill of 145 billion cedis has been approved by Parliament. However, like I told you in my intro earlier, the e-levy bill is to be taken on Monday. So it's still going to be a busy session in Parliament, a lot of wheeling and dealing. And that's all in this edition of Key Points. Many thanks for joining us. Up next, of course, is Warm Up Plus.